And we are live. So welcome to another episode of AI Marketing for Remodelers and Builders. If you don't know us, I'm Kai. I'm our lead consultant, everything marketing, AI strategy. I'm your guy. And then with me is Spencer, our CEO and founder. Spencer, we've got a very Claude-nificent episode today, showing off Claude, which is probably the biggest competitor of ChatGPT. So we showed off a lot of ChatGPT on our episode. So I wanted to show off some Claude as well, because it's something that honestly, the more our team uses it, the more they can't stop using it. There's a lot of cool use cases. It does some things differently than ChatGPT that I like. Not saying you have to switch to one or the other, but just want to show the listeners, the watchers, what Claude is all about. So before we dive into it, Spencer, I don't know, are you still mainly like a ChatGPT guy? Have you been like experimenting a little bit with Claude? I know everybody's on the Claude hype train right now, so curious where you're at.
Yeah, I would say chat is still my default, but I did get on Claude, and I after our last episode, I started working. Last episode or conversation somewhere in between, started. I worked on downloading and getting the terminal set up on my computer and trying to work towards Claude Code and getting that going. And I felt like I made pretty good progress, but I haven't actually done anything yet, other than I'm working on downloading some skills into my terminal. So that's where I'm at with Claude.
I like it. I like it. So you're even going ahead of what we're going to talk about today, because we're just going to talk about the web app for all of our watchers and listeners out there. But Claude Code may be a future episode, Spencer. Very proud of you for setting up the terminal. Keep grinding at it. Claude Code's definitely worth it. It's the main way that I've been working with Claude, but the web app's still pretty good as well. So if you listen to this episode, you're going to get a high level look at Claude, what it is, what makes it different, and why it's one of our favorite tools to use. So just starting really quickly, like, what is Claude? So you can see here, this is the opening of Claude, just the home screen itself. Basically, think of it kind of like ChatGPT, just made by a different company. The company's called Anthropic. You can use it for free. I will say that they are not as generous with their usage as ChatGPT. So you will, I think one of our team members, Spencer, was using it this week, and he said he got 5 messages out of it before it kicked him out of his free account. So
wow,
definitely not as much usage. Yeah, definitely not as much usage, but you can try for free, and then all the same pricing tiers pretty much as ChatGPT. So really, like the big thing with Claude and where it really shines is the data analysis, and we've talked about that on so many episodes, Spencer. But Claude is definitely better at analyzing larger data sets compared to ChatGPT, compared to Gemini. Also, the second part that I want to talk about is its skills. So we've talked about custom GPTs before, but Claude's version of these are skills, which is basically their markdown files of context and instructions, similar to custom GPTs, right? So you see content audit here, website audit, copy editing, tons of different skills. The fun thing with skills that's different with custom GPTs is with a custom GPT, I have to like call that custom GPT, or I have to like go into a chat with it. Claude can naturally use all of these skills, no matter the situation, no matter the conversation, and you don't even have to tell it to use them. So let's say I'm working on paid ads. If it knows that there's something relevant in this markdown file that it should reference, it'll go ahead and just call that skill. Let's say that while I'm working on paid ads, I'm also talking about content strategy, as well as form conversion rate and page conversion rate. It can call four of those tools to achieve one task. So skills, the more skills you have, Spencer, the more it compounds, and that's when you're really starting to get the most out of it.
Yeah, that's I like that, and I would imagine these skills you can take some skills that are just like out in the marketplace, but can you also just like put in your own skills the way you define them?
Yep. Yeah. Super easy. So both. So there are people out there that just share all types of skills. Obviously, be careful what you download, because some skills can run certain scripts and things like that. So make sure you trust who you're downloading it from. But most of the time, it's just a markdown file, which is just text. But you can go ahead and grab these on the web. Honestly, if that might be one of our email CTAs. If you want any of these skills for your Claude, just go ahead and email me, and I'll send you all the skills that I have, and then you can just upload them to your Claude. But then if you click up like on this plus button right here, you can just either upload one that you write yourself, you can write out manually a skill here, or you can just talk with Claude and you can just create a new skill with Claude. So a lot of the times, like for example, with this content audit skill, this is very specific to how I do my content audit. So I just told it, like we just went back and forth on one chat and we did it. And I said, cool, now make this into a skill. Take all the context from this chat, make this into a skill. So then we can just keep doing this. We don't have to start from scratch every time.
Like that. Yeah. It feels like, yeah, any processes really you could kind of turn into skill. Is it more like a process, or how would you define like a skill?
It's it can be it can be almost anything, but I would say probably like a process. Like how I explain it is it's either instructions, context, or a process. So for example, my content audit one follows a very specific process. So it has like all the buckets that I do, it has the workflow here. But then the copywriting one is just like, hey, here's what you should be doing. Here's like good copywriting frameworks. Here's like some rules, best practices. So it can really just be anything. I think that's why like it's kind of broad the way I describe them because they can be anything, but it's just a file of tons of context information, instructions if you want it for Claude to reference so it can just understand something very quickly. It can also just pull from its memory obviously, but having like these very specific like little skills and parts of its brain that it can just call on when it needs. Definitely you see that difference versus if you're just relying on its memory. It's still going to do a pretty good job, but it's not going to get to this depth every time for all of these skills.
Yeah. So one thing it makes me think of, so you have a couple like copywriting is a skill. If I were working on like an email, should I emphasize like look at your copywriting skill when writing this email? Because I would imagine in copywriting you might also have copywriting for website pages, copywriting for emails, so I feel like there's like a high level skill within that bucket and then some sub nuance of like you're working on this, or is that more just in the prompt? You're just like, hey, use your copywriting skill. I'm drafting an email. This is my goal. And then you don't need like three different copywriting skills baked into Claude.
It's really up to you. I think it just depends. Like I'd say if like you were mostly writing emails a lot, I'd probably just have an email copywriting skill because there's definitely some nuances there versus like writing for a landing page, for example. But for me, like the copywriting skill is enough to cover my social captions. Usually like any like short, like I don't really write blogs, but like any like short like pieces I write. And also like emails like that works for me. But yeah, if you're writing emails every day, like that's like your main job, I'd probably have an email copywriting skill.
Yeah, that makes sense. So it's fairly flexible, is what I'm hearing.
Very flexible. Yeah, and this is like the future. ChatGPT is going away. Even ChatGPT, they're going away from custom GPTs and they're shifting more to skills. So I think they just released it for enterprise right now, but expect this to come to ChatGPT as well, which is why I didn't want to make this episode about like Claude's the new best thing, like get off of ChatGPT and migrate all your stuff over because at the end of the day, all of these companies are just going to copy each other. So just do what works for you. If you like Claude, use Claude. If you like ChatGPT, use ChatGPT. I use both. I use like all of the AI tools. I just as you use them more, you'll kind of get which ones do better at certain things versus others. Awesome. So let's get into the live demo here. So Spencer, the demo I wanted to show off here, and you'd be proud of me. I was very prepared, so I already have it all done for us. But the demo I want to show off here is going to be one of my favorite workflows that I like using with Claude, and that's going to be using the content audit skill to audit a remodeler's website based on our three buckets. So I look at your core content, like your service pages, your process page. I look at your blog content, and then I look if you have any lead magnets. So it's going to do that audit for us. And then it's going to pull all the topics that we need to write using the content strategy skill, and then it's going to use the copywriting skill to actually write that first piece of content for us. And this took me probably like 5 minutes, maybe longer as like with like waiting, but it was just calling these couple different skills, and it actually called extra skills that I didn't even tell it to. So ready to hop
Interesting.
into it?
Yeah, let's do it.
Sweet. So I just chose Nicholas Builders here. So for some reason, I was thinking of Columbus, Ohio. We were talking about Skyline Chili in a meeting, this like I think just before this. So it made me think of Ohio. So I just grabbed like the first remodeler I saw in like Columbus, Ohio. Even though yes, and some people are gonna be in Cincinnati, like Skyline's based in Cincinnati. It's just Ohio to me, all right. Um, so first thing we did here is I said use the content audit skill for this company. So you notice I didn't even tell it to do much. I said, hey, use the content skill, like just use this, go to this company. And so you can see here, it reads the content audit skill. I'll zoom in a little bit more just so you probably see this a little bit better. And also I like for it to generate a spreadsheet. Claude and ChatGPT can now do the same thing as well. They just released it, but it can natively produce Excel spreadsheets and Word documents.
That's
So I told it
nice.
that I like it to just do it in an Excel spreadsheet. So it read the Excel spreadsheet skill to make sure it formats it correctly. So that again, that's how nitty gritty these skills can get. Is there's a specific skill just for formatting for an Excel sheet. So then it crawled the site here. I would say like if I were to do this differently, I probably should have fed it the whole sitemap. I just gave it the link, but it did a pretty good job from what I saw. And so you see here, it can search the web just like ChatGPT. It was looking for all of those like core pages here, those blogs, those lead magnets. It actually didn't find a blog, and I saw they didn't have a blog either. And then basically here, we see that it ran its audit. So this is the summary of the audit, right? And you're probably just like, this is okay, right? This is the magic, right? Is those native Excel sheets are really nice. It could be a little buggy, so sometimes I just export it. But we can see here it has all of our categories here. It has our urgent findings, and then it even sets it up by tabs. So it has all their URLs here. Does it exist? Is the content depth? Does it have a CTA? Lead magnets gave us some ideas. What do they have? What do they not have? As well as an action plan. So pretty
Wow.
clean
Yeah.
overall.
Yeah, and the formatting of that output is really nice.
Super clean.
Yeah.
Super clean. So what we see here with Nicholas Design Builders, and if y'all are listening, shout out to y'all. But they have a lot of like those like core pages, right? So like it exists. Some of that content depth can be a little thin, but overall it's pretty good. The main thing for them is they got an F because they don't have a blog. So they don't have any blog content. All that stuff is missing. And they also are missing like any sort of lead magnets, right? So that's like a cost calculator or quiz or like a cost guide or a planning guide. The only things they have and it considers this is just the contact form, but that's not a lead magnet, but a way for people to convert. And so from there, right, I said take this content audit and use the content strategy skill to list out what do we need, right? So list out all the topics that we need. And so it has us put them into like 5 overall pillars. So remodeling costs and budgeting, kitchen and bathroom modeling, process and what to expect. And then this is like, if this was like, we're one of my clients, I would feed it more information. I'd feed it more about their goals and to be like more specific. But overall, this is pretty good. And honestly, for a client that doesn't have a blog, the usual play that we would do here for sure. You're going after those cost and budgeting terms first. You make it local specific. Then you go some service specific terms, you go process, and then you're going to start going into trends as well as like bottom of funnel questions.
Yeah. I like that. So you basically you started with one skill to do the
hmm
audit, then you said, "Okay, now let's layer on another skill and start building."
Yep, exactly. And you can see here, it read the content strategy skill. So there's a full markdown file of best practices of content strategy, what it should do, what its process should be. And as the great part about these skills as well is they evolve with you. So even if you take skills from somebody else, you can make those your own skill, and you can say, "Hey, Claude, like update this skill based on this past session that we had," and it makes them. It starts to really dial in what you want. And so here it listed out all of those topics here. So the first one, how much does a kitchen remodel cost in Columbus, Ohio? How much does a bathroom remodel cost? So it listed out all of those topics for each of those pillars. So again, 5 main pillars, and a couple blogs each. And so then here I said, sweet, now use any skills that will help create that first blog. My kitchen costs are 80K to 200K. I just looked at their pictures and I just kind of assumed, but they look a little bit larger scope, a little bit more higher end design builds. That's the usual range that we
You
see.
got a good budget eye, Kai. I bet you nailed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's one of my secret superpowers, I'd say. Yeah. So here's one of those really good examples, Spencer. So you can see here, it read the copywriting skill. It read the SEO audit skill for on-page optimization guidance. It checked for AI writing detection patterns to avoid. I can't tell if that's a skill or just something that it does.
Yeah, that's
It also
interesting.
checked for, yeah, it checked for copy frameworks, and it also checked the docx skill for creating that blog as a Word doc. So it checked 5 skills, and I just said use any skills that will help. Because when you get so many skills in here, you're just gonna start forgetting what you got. So you're just gonna say, you know what, use whatever's gonna help, and it will probably do a pretty good job. And so this was really interesting too, Spencer. So then it decided to just do competitor research by itself.
Mm.
So it decided to look at other Columbus, Ohio remodeling companies and look at their costs. So you see it like search the web there, and it looked at some of these companies. And so it sees here, so now it's like, great, I have a clear picture of the landscape. Most competitors are targeting like that budget to mid-range market, which is at that 5 to 40K, which we will say, if you look in any market at the Google AI overview, it's about this range. It's usually much smaller than what a lot of kitchen remodels cost. And so here it says, hey, but here's their budget. So this is actually a really good positioning opportunity. Let me keep that in mind. And let me also check their closest competitor and what their pricing is. So cool. Then it found the Cleary company. It found like their pricing blog. And then it said that they publish cost content with product examples and price tiers, including a luxury tier of like 225,000 plus. So now it has everything it needs to write this blog. And so then it gives you a quick little overview of like the positioning as the strategy. It includes everything you need to publish. So it gave us even like the metadata, like title tags, meta description, URL slug, target keywords, internal link suggestions,
That's gonna be
all of
using
that
that
stuff.
SEO skill, right? Or something
Yep.
that you got baked in.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And it also says what makes us competitive as well. And then, same as the spreadsheet, we can see here. Oh, no, here we go. I was like, come on, don't fail me here. You did so good. Is our Word doc. So you see here, it has some little cliff notes for us. And then it wrote out that cost blog, which I read through, and it read pretty well. I'd probably still go through this. And this is where, like, when we just talked about like creating content with AI. Now imagine if I worked at this company and I could just brain dump for like 2 minutes all this extra context about these costs, specific projects I've worked on in the past, what actual prospects are telling me, past customers. And if you fill that with like that specific experience, right? Because this is like that 80/20. Like this is definitely 80% of the way there. This looks pretty solid. It created a nice table for us. I love this section actually, why our prices are different than what you'll see online. I
Yeah,
actually
that's
really love
great.
that. It talks about what tends to push costs higher. This is a very, very solid blog. Um, but now we just add in those personal experiences. We add in that thought leadership that it doesn't have. That you could probably post this as is and it would do pretty well, to be honest with you, when you pair it with all the skills. But it's such an easy thing just to add in my own personal experience if I worked at this company, to make this even better. And then even gives us some extra notes as well. So talks about like what internal links, once a remodeling planning guide lead magnet is created, add that article or add that CTA mid article, and also gives us a suggested posting cadence. All this within 5 minutes, which is when you think about that, right? And so it's like, wow, it gave us like 30 blog topics to do. Um, that this can be done in an afternoon, realistically.
So, Kai, I'm curious with you. So you mentioned that you have all these skills, but then with this post, it's like, okay, this is 80% of the way there, but I would love to give it all the context within my company, similar projects, FAQs around kitchen remodeling, FAQs around would that be like a company skill where it's like here, it's kind of like a knowledge base, but would you just upload that as a skill? So it's like, please reference, you know, company ABC skill when you're writing this post, or
Yeah,
yeah, how do you think about that? Because I would imagine
yeah.
you would want to refer back to similar information when creating multiple pieces of content or writing an email or creating a
hmm
social post.
Yeah. So I hope I don't leak anything here, but this is where like projects in Claude are really cool. I actually don't think I would have like a company skill. I've kind of messed around with that. So like in one of my skills, I have like Kai's brain dump from October 29th or something. I've played around with that. And so that's why it's okay, cool. I can have all these brain dumps and then I'll just call those brain dumps as skills when I just want to call on that really quickly. Definitely works. But this is where I really love Claude projects. And so here, if I were to go to Builder Funnel Work here, it generates an MD file and it auto updates after every session. So here again, I'm trying to scroll fast. I'm not trying to leak what we're doing. Really, a lot of it's meta ads. All right. For people that can't see this, it's just meta ad stuff. But it does a really good job of like, let's say we're doing all of this work in Claude and in this project. It will do a really good job of like giving all that company context. What's on the, like, it even says like what's on the horizon? What have we learned? What tasks are we doing? It does a really good job of that, just auto updating in the project memory. So I probably would just stick with that versus a skill. You could definitely do a skill, but I don't think it's needed as long as you're working in projects within Claude.
Makes sense.
Yep. Yeah, and so for this one too, just to be completely transparent, I do have the max Claude plan because I use Claude Code a lot and it eats up usage. So I did do this with their like Opus model, which is their strongest model. As far as doing this for free, I think you might get one Opus message. So I did this in 3 messages. But yeah, as far as doing this in a whole afternoon, I would say Claude's gonna be a little bit more expensive than ChatGPT, where I would say if you're using Claude every day, not like necessarily power user, but you're going in it every day in the web app and doing things with Opus, their strongest model, you might want to even look at the $100 a month version. You can start with the $20 a month version. Um, but yeah, and then they also have like ways to like top off credits and things where if you don't want to spend 100 but you want to spend more than 20, you can kind of make your own plan there. But definitely more expensive than ChatGPT, but I would say until ChatGPT gets skills, the quality that I'm seeing from Claude has been phenomenal, especially when it comes to audits, writing, data analysis, which is a lot of what my role is.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think what we're seeing too is just if you're going to use these tools pretty quickly, you got to jump on the paid models and yeah, I mean the output that you can get and the speed pays for it pretty quickly.
It's funny, Spencer. This could be a whole separate episode in itself, but when these tools like first came out, I would say like you thought you were the person if you were spending $20 a month. And I think now $20 is like the baseline. Like if you're not many people are really using if you're using these tools for work, not many people are actually using the free tier at this point. And then I remember when they first came out with the $200 a month pricing tier, and which is like both ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, they all use the same pricing structures. And everybody's like, that's crazy, that's crazy. Now it's like $200 is a steal. I think people would pay way more a month when you start getting like unlimited access to these models and you start really seeing what's possible.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean just watching this kind of flow, and the skills is definitely a big level up to be able to have like that amount of horsepower and knowledge base um, and customization. I feel like that's the cool part is you can make that skill to exactly what you need. Like I think about like if you were to have it doing a interior design or blueprints or like anything related to that, like you could build in all of your company's unique way of doing it and all the little nuances that you've learned and bake that into the skill.
Yeah, and again, how I make all my skills, I grab most of these from like a GitHub repo, but how I make all my skills is I just kind of do the task with Claude and it has all the context of what it needs, and then I just tell it to build a skill based off the context of the conversation. If you try to build the skill first, it'll probably do a pretty good job, but giving it the context of the full conversation and going through like point A to B with it really helps these skills like dial in. That's exactly how I did the content audit skill, and now it does it like exactly how I do it, to the point where it's like, yeah, like this runs my content audit now. And then I just go in and it's like, it's as if somebody under me were giving this report and I just kind of check, I'll look at things. And it gives me just more of a jumping off point.
Yeah, so cool. Well,
Sweet.
now I'm going to be jumping into Claude a little bit more with the skills, and maybe I'll keep working on the terminal, but this opens up some things.
It's super cool. It's super cool. But Spencer, it is our favorite point of the pod, the PWOW. If you know, you know, our parting words of wisdom. If there is one thing that anybody should remember from this episode, what should it be?
That's a good question. I know this isn't a like jump on the Claude bandwagon because you said skills are either coming or they're right there with ChatGPT too. But I think my PWOW would be this week. Go jump in and build a skill. Like take something that you do. And I like your advice, Kai, of just like doing it and talking through it with Claude and just like you were talking to an employee where you're like, hey, this is how I do this thing. I'm training you on this process. And then just say, turn it into a skill and see how that goes. Cause yeah, I mean, in this example, I don't know what it would have taken you previously, but this probably cut your time in by a tenth or something. I don't know. Pretty wild.
Yeah, I'm not even a writer. Like, so the fact I can just give my raw thoughts, and yeah, I maybe could do one of those a day. So the fact that I did that in like 10 minutes, like from zero to getting the first topic done, is that saved me infinite amounts of time.
What's your PWOW, Kai?
I would say my PWOW is to, I think it's gotta be skills as well, and maybe not even necessarily with Claude because ChatGPT is getting them. And funny enough, I was using like ChatGPT within the terminal, like Claude Code. I was testing out ChatGPT's version, and they actually have a setting where you can migrate your Claude skills over to the Codex, which is pretty cool. So it can just use both. Yeah, but I'd say like skills, and I think just thinking in that way. So start thinking about um packaging up context, instructions, workflows, and all skills are a markdown file at the end of the day. You can even have ChatGPT just be like, hey, take this context from this chat that we just did and just make this into a markdown file and save that into your computer. I think a big part about skills, which is awesome as well, is custom GPTs are like they're stuck in ChatGPT.
Hmm.
Skills are a markdown file. You can save those in your computer and you can have tons of skills on your computer and those are yours. You can move them, and then let's say like Gemini comes out with skills and you want to use Gemini. Now it doesn't feel as hard to try out all these different tools because you don't have specific custom GPTs or specific projects. You can kind of just have all these files that live locally on your device or even in like a Google Drive or something. Download those and just apply them to whatever tool that you want. But I think skills for sure is that's where AI is going right now. I think everybody thought it was going to be custom GPTs at first, and skills are just I mean, you saw it, Spencer. It's very smooth. It references it all itself. I think that's really where we're going with AI.
Yeah, and it seems like it is a little bit tough to predict which direction this stuff will go. Like you said, oh, we thought it would go this way,
Yeah.
but then one little thing comes out and it's like, oh, actually that was the thing. So you do have to stay on top of it, which is why we're doing this podcast, Kai, because you're on top of it, and we can all follow along with you.
I'll say if you're using AI almost every day, you're ahead of 90% of people. There's no way, unless you're an AI researcher or data, like AI data, you're not going to be ahead. And that's okay, right? It never hurts. You don't have to be first to something. You just don't want to be last. I think that maybe is another PWOW that can stick with you. But that has been this episode of AI marketing for remodelers and builders. As a reminder, if you want any of the skills that you saw, I think I have like what 20, 15, 20 something skills in my Claude. If you want any of those, feel free to email me at kb as in boy iami at builderfunnel.com. Again, that is kbiami at builderfunnel.com. Just email me, say you want those skills, and I'll send them to you. And we will see y'all on the next episode.